Yes, it started.
Thank you. All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order today. It's the special meeting of the West Haven MARB Subcommittee, and today is February 27th. The time is 9:03, and I want to remind everybody that today is a special meeting, so the topics of discussion today have to be according to the agenda that has been posted and provided to everyone. This is a Teams meeting, so we ask that everybody make sure that they speak clearly and into their microphone so that this way the minutes will reflect the recording. And the only other thing for opening remarks is I think that it would be prudent if we stop the meeting with a hard stop around 9:50 so that it gives us enough time, about 10 minutes, to move to the next meeting for the full MARB at 10 o'clock. And John or Simon, I'll ask you to keep track of time if I should forget to do so. Mr. Alvarez, do you have any other opening remarks today?
I do not.
Thank you so much. All right, let's move on to the agenda item number 2 of the minutes, and it's February 11th special meeting. Those minutes were included in your package for the subcommittee members, and if I could get a motion to approve those minutes, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Kevin. And how about a second?
Second.
Thank you, Susan.
Second, Susan.
And any other discussion? I hear none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Stephen, I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Well, the minutes have been approved. Now the next item on the agenda today is the City of West Haven, and we are going to discuss and take possible action on West Haven's Tier 4 criteria for release from the MARB oversight. And today I would like to ask Mr. Hamilton to please be prepared to do a report out at the full MARB meeting. The secretary has asked that we ask one of the board members, besides myself, to report out. So Tom, if you could please do that when we get to the full meeting and take notes from this, that would be helpful.
Sure, happy to do that.
Thank you, Tom. And at the February 11th meeting of the subcommittee, the members requested that we schedule a public meeting with the city, and that was the reason for this meeting today. No action was taken on the February 11th. In addition, the committee requested that the fiscal year 24 audited statements were necessary for this body to be able to make an informed decision. And since then, we have received the FY24 audited statements with their findings, and we have shared that with the board. So with that, the subcommittee has also received following a couple of documents which included the criteria for the city, and this is suggested criteria. The actual triggers that are from the statute, and in addition, the tier designation retention report, which is a tier 2 through tier 4 municipalities. It says at the top of that report, which is PA 24-132 as far as MARB statute is concerned, and the criteria for determination of sound financial practices, or in the statute it states irregularities or unsound practices. We also included it was a request to have the statute for retention and designation for tier 2, 3, and 4, and that was also provided to this body. So I would like to first move on to discussion about the criteria. And Simon, if you could please share the first document, I think that will be helpful.
Sure.
Triggers, as we call it.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thank you. So we've updated this this document. You'll recall number 1 was a no because we were pending the outcome of the FY 24 results from that audit. And so now all of the criteria has been addressed except for number 5, and that is what's for discussion for today. This committee also asked that we provide the statute, and we did do that down the side of each one of the criteria here to lay out the actual lines within the statute. So if you just go, thank you, Simon, down to the financial practices, which is item number 5. This is the area for discussion today, I think, that we want to spend most of our time on. And unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to move quickly to the second page, since the financial satisfied this. Thank you, Simon. Okay, so this is the criteria for consideration for the MARB to make a determination of, I would call it, sound practices, and we have put together various items for consideration. Some of this came directly from MARB members, and some of it is from our own financial background. So the fiscal year audit findings, you will see have been updated on this particular document. And it includes that we received the financial statements. It also includes changes in the material weaknesses as the city has improved, and they now have 0 material weaknesses. One of those material weaknesses was downgraded for a significant deficiency, and they have 4 non-compliance items which fall between the federal and the state grants, and 1 on the financial statements. And I think that might be all that has been updated here. Simon, can you just scroll down for me to be able to see if we've made any other changes? Yes, we did. I remember. Item number 5, we have removed. This criteria was listed when we met last, and that had to do with the funding of the internal service fund. And the balance in that fund as a net effect is really immaterial, falling at about $400,000. So we did not feel that it is necessary to continue. So this was great news that the city had funded it was a long outstanding internal service fund. And can you just go down a little further? Thank you. All right. So that's just a recap of the changes that we made to the document, and we can then begin to open it up for discussion as to if anybody has any questions. And you are aware that the mayor has provided us some commentary to all of these specific criteria that is listed, and we are open to any suggestions from the members that we might have missed or should be taking into consideration. Any questions from the MARB members?
Go.
Yes,
Kim?
Kevin. Yes, Kevin.
No. Oh, Kevin.
Oh, I saw other folks raise before me, so I'm happy to defer.
I apologize. Yours was the first one that I saw. So why don't you start and then we'll move on.
Gotcha. Well, actually, and not to again defer, but I saw Mr. Gormany raise his hand, so it might be, I think I'd first want to hear from the city on their perspective on this. I think I have some suggestions about the way that we could take this, but I first would want to hear from the city.
All right. Any
There
of
you
the
go.
MARB members have any other questions before we turn it over to the city? All right. Mayor, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again for holding this subcommittee meeting. It's an important meeting for the city of West Haven. We did provide a commentary in response to the criteria that was laid out. Actually, my first question was more of a structure question for the meeting. How would you like us to, do you want us to weigh in on the points while you're having the discussion? I know in the last meeting, we weren't in the executive session, so you brought us to this meeting to weigh in on some of these aspects. So how do you want to structure this where we comment on the individual points?
Kevin, I'm going to over to you because you had requested.
Yeah, so I think I would, rather than taking the time to go through every one of these points, and I think we might need to do that towards the end, but I don't think we've had the discussion of, one, is it the city's intention that you believe that you have met all of the criteria related to the statutory regulations? Are you interested in exiting MARB oversight? Are you interested in moving to Tier 2 oversight? And what is your general impression of this sort of list of potential criteria for us to consider while we make that determination? I think that's my basic question for the city.
Thank you, Kevin. Those are good questions. I would say that, yes, we're looking to exit MARB. We're not looking to align it in another tier because we feel we not only met the criteria for Tier 4, but looking at the state statute, we don't believe we have anything within our financial controls or our governance that qualifies us for Tier 2 or Tier 3 as well. So that, let me put that out there. Number two, this list, I understand you needed to start somewhere. This was a starting point of this list. In speaking with the secretary, he said this is an ideal city list. And while we would strive, everybody strives to be an ideal city.
We lost you. We can't hear you, Mayor. You must be experiencing some audio difficulties.
Oh, yep, we're back.
Okay.
We're like, what is going on? I hope that's not a reflection on the status of the city of West Haven. So this list, we've been told is an ideal list, and I know you had to have a starting point, but I think there's some things on here that don't necessarily tie to the state statute, and I think that should be really our benchmark. The original criteria that were in the MARB structure, we have met. This last criterion we are debating, we believe as a team that we have met all of this criteria as well. We didn't ask to leave in the beginning. We knew we had work. We knew we had a lot of work to do at the city of West Haven. And I think we've accomplished everything you've asked from us. And a lot of the comments throughout the year have been, I was looking back at the comments. One was, you're not in Tier 4 because of the theft, you're in Tier 4 because of your governance. And I think we've demonstrated that our governance is very strong now. We've done everything that was identified we should do and then beyond, not just because you asked us to do it, but because we know we should do this as a municipality. We were also told that you're really pleased with our financial approach, our balanced, responsible budgets, our 5-year plan, all the work that we've done on our ethics, our transparency. That all ties into the financial, the last criteria, asking, have we engaged in any unsound financial practices? I don't believe we have. And I think if we can, I don't know if you want to go through this criteria, but the audit, the last comment the secretary said in one of our meetings was, your audit is looming large for us. Your audit is going to tell the story because that is the certified document of where you stand. We've delivered 2 audits, fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, in the 6-month period at the beginning of 2024, and then delivered fiscal year 24 timely and cleared all material weaknesses. That was no easy task. We worked really hard to do that. And then the significant deficiency that remains, the Protivity report demonstrates, and Protivity is a contractor that the state of Connecticut hired to help us and track our progress in real time. That Protivity tracker today shows that we've cleared the significant deficiency as well. So I think we need to take the certified audit and couple it with the productivity tracker that really has been tracking all of our progress. So I'm going to pause there and hope I answered all of your questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, one question. We have not provided the productivity tracker, and I do not believe that it has been updated with the fiscal year 24 audit findings. As of yet, I haven't seen that updated document. And I believe, to my knowledge, that the management letter comments are still pending. And so those would need to be reviewed to see if there is any high-risk areas still open in that for consideration.
If I could respond to that, how often do you get the productivity tracker? Let me start by asking that. When was the last productivity tracker that you received?
Not long ago.
Okay, so the productivity tracker was using the fiscal year 22 and 23 audit comments, right, to show where we stand in real time. So they haven't updated it with the fiscal year 24, but there's no material weaknesses in fiscal year 24 for them to put on the tracker to track. So they have cleared what we had from fiscal year 22 and 23. There's no additional comments that they have to clear.
What I'm referring to is the overall tracker includes, I'm getting an echo. Bob, we're going to have people go on mute because I'm echoing. Thank you. In addition to that, I think for consideration is the management comments that would not have been cleared as well. That is all part of the entire package, and for consideration for this group. And a significant, we do have significant deficiencies in addition to the non-compliance, and those non-compliance items. I am here not to say yes or no. I am here to be the factual person that says, give you the information that you need so you can make this body can make a decision, and that the non-compliance items are in the grant area, and one being federal and one being financial grant programs, and the federal major grant program is what it's classified as. And I believe those findings were provided to everybody here. Bob, I do see that you have your hand up, so I'm going to pause and give you the floor.
Thank you. And thank you, Lori, for helping my teams work. I wanted to address one of the last things, the fire service. And I want to clarify, that's kind of coming from me, and I want to clarify what that is and what that isn't. The issue is, what will the city do if one of the fire districts can no longer provide service? Okay, we're not asking, we recognize that the city has no jurisdiction over the two independent districts. We recognize that MARB has no jurisdiction over those independent districts. But the question is, what will you do if they fail? From the beginning, it was very clear that those districts were in trouble. We already knew that some years ago, Allentown failed, and the city incorporated them and took on their debts. One of the first things we did was have that fire study, and they said, don't do that. So again, I would like to get you out of here. I don't think this is a major issue. I don't want to get into a debate. Is it bad fiscal practice? But it seems to me when an essential city service is being performed by a financially unstable entity, you have a problem. I've indicated that I've thought about this. This has got to do with insolvency, and I dealt with this personally a while ago, trying to look at stuff, and I'd be happy to talk to your lawyers. I think there is a fix, a plan to do something that's not going to take long, not going to keep you in here, not going to make you have to deal with the fire districts. So I just like to get that across. How will you preserve fire service if one of those districts is unable to? Hello?
Is that, Kim, are you looking for us to respond or?
Yes, please. Sorry,
Yeah, I
I
just want to, because you push back, and there's been a lot of misunderstanding. As soon as you say fire districts, all sorts of walls go up. But I guess what I'd like to hear from you is that, yes, you would consider it, and put it in, let us know so that we know that, you've addressed it.
Michael, I have put you on mute when the members are speaking because you're causing the echo. So you may respond and take yourself off mute.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. So Bob, I appreciate the question and I understand the question, right? Just because we're separate entities, it's all one taxpayer, right? And we know that even if we're separate, we're paying different taxes and we have to make sure we're doing everything to partner as a city to make sure we support our fire departments. I will tell you this, if a fire department was going bankrupt and there's nothing on the table today that says that, are there challenges? There's challenges in a lot of our government agencies. There is our firefighters will continue to provide the excellent quality service they provide every day. We will make it work. If God forbid something happens in the future, we will be there and we will make sure that we provide the service and we will make sure we figure out the finances and we will do it together. And even if we needed assistance from the state of Connecticut in the future to talk about that, but I know you don't want to debate whether it ties to the statute, but it really is, the statute really talks about, have we engaged in unsound financial practices? So to ask us to plan for the future, of course we're going to plan if something happens. That is what we do every day for every service that we have in the city. We want to make sure we're sound. We want to make sure we provide the service. But I don't think it ties to whether we have unsound financial practices as defined in the statute. And I think we really need to stick to that because otherwise we can come up with what ifs outside of the statute. We could come up with a number of what ifs outside of the statute. But to answer your question, we will make sure, the show goes on. Our firefighters will do what they do best. And we will make sure we fix them financially, just like we fixed this city of West Haven financially.
If we Mayor, that really isn't an answer that you'll fix it. You don't have enough if they can't provide the service, you don't have enough firefighters. Okay, you don't have enough equipment. You don't have enough facilities. Okay, there is a way to deal with that. Okay, quickly, not expensive. But just to say we'll take care of it, and I'll leave it to the rest of the MARB members. We can talk offline as a subcommittee. But this was an issue presented to MARB from the beginning. We recognized the jurisdiction. We tried to jawbone with these folks. We kind of got the middle finger. But the issue is, what do you do if something does happen? And I will take issue with you. The financial condition of those two districts are not very good, and Allentown failed. Okay, so if something happens, MARB is going to be criticized. Where were you? And to accept that the city, who had under your leadership has made extraordinary efforts, and I applaud them. But we would be severely criticized for saying, yeah, we'll take care of it when it's already happened to a bad outcome. So I encourage you to spend a bit of time. I'm willing to talk to your lawyers. I think there's a fairly quick fix. But if you want to push back, then, that's, we'll deal with that down the road. But I'm
Thank
a
you,
little
Bob.
disappointed. I'm a little disappointed.
I'm going to move over to Tom Hamilton, who has his hand up next.
Okay, thank you. I guess I want to weigh in on a couple of different points here that the mayor has made and that other board members have talked about and that staff has presented here. I do agree somewhat generally with the mayor that the original list that has been put out, it is not defined enough, and it is probably more extensive than it needs to be in terms of what the final criteria ought to be. And I agree with the mayor that there ought to be some reasonable nexus to the statutory criteria that we're operating under here. Where I take issue with the mayor, I think, really is in a couple of areas that offer me or that give me pause, give me some concern. So I want to sort of surface those and sort of let you know what I'm thinking. One is the significant deficiency that the most recent state single audit report, which I guess we're going to discuss at the upcoming at the meeting at 10 o'clock, lists the significant deficiency being a failure to perform bank reconciliations on a timely basis, and I don't know how long that went on, and I understand there's some indication from the city that Protiviti's updated report has indicated that this deficiency has now been corrected, but when I'm looking at the state criteria, when it says, was there no evidence that the municipality engages in unsound or irregular financial practices in relation to commonly accepted standards of municipal finance? To me, kind of what they're asking us to do is look at the most recent audited financial statements, look at the most recent management letter from the auditors, look at the most recent state and federal single compliance reports, and are there any material weaknesses? Answer is no. Or are there any significant deficiencies? If there are, then to me that says there's evidence that there is an unsound financial practice that we have before us. So, even though I'm understanding Protiviti is saying that, although I haven't seen the Protiviti report personally, maybe it has been corrected since the last audit period, but really the evidence that we have before us is that for the most recent audited period, there was a significant deficiency. And so I'm having some real difficulty just getting over that hurdle. For me, at a minimum, what I would like to see is an audit report that shows no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. And then to me, it's debatable, an additional criteria could be, are there other audit findings that have been repeated? Because if they've been repeated from prior years, that's also an indication that something hasn't been corrected on a timely basis. So I've got some real difficulty there. The second issue, which I think this one, again, West Haven may not be entirely unique here, but when you look at an audited financial statement and it shows that there is, I think it's about $158 million of unfunded liability associated with the OPEB plan. And although in the last year the city has established an OPEB trust fund, it essentially is funded with, just a tiny amount of money. And there isn't, at this point, a real plan over a multi-year period to address that unfunded liability. So to me, And again, West Haven is not entirely unique in this regard. There are other municipalities in Connecticut who are not before MARB that have the same issue. But to me, that does present evidence of an unsound financial practice. So those are the two big things that I see that kind of really do tie directly to the state criteria of we need to see that there's no evidence of an unsound financial practice. And then the third thing that gives me pause or concern is just this unknown relative to the police pension and what is the ultimate resolution of that, and what is the ultimate cost to the city of that, and how does that affect the 5-year plan. And personally, I would like to see that matter resolved in some fashion or another, although I do have a harder time attaching that concern directly to the statutory criteria. So those are my concerns that I have, so I'm curious where other members of the subcommittee are.
Thank you, Tom. Over to Michael. I do see your hand is up, but I want to continue with the board members, please. Okay. Over to Kevin.
Yeah, I think and I also welcome the feedback from the city on this and on Mr. Hamilton's comments, because I think they're reasonable. I don't know if I entirely agree. My view in just going through each of these items, I think the first category related to the audit report is a reasonable one for the board to consider. I'll first say, I think we might be going about this in a way that's overly restrictive to the board itself, where I think we can come out of this meeting ideally with the areas that are of most significance that we think the full board should consider when ultimately taking a vote. I don't think we need to adopt them as a sort of formal criteria. I think we can make a recommendation to the board. Here are the areas that we think are most significant. But the board members that aren't in this subcommittee might also have a different perspective. So I don't think that we need to bind the board to any one set of criteria. I think it's important, if we don't go forward with voting to align with the city's goal of exiting MARB oversight, we give them a clear list of the reasons why. But I think we're sort of putting the cart before the horse a little bit. I think related to the audit report, I think I see it slightly differently than Mr. Hamilton, in that I think, one, if the significant deficiencies have been solved for, then I think I'm very comfortable. I don't know, and I'm not an expert in this, but how many municipalities in the state would meet the criteria that's set out here, where if they have no significant deficiencies finding, does that mean that the municipality itself is operating in a way that is unsound or irregular? When I think, candidly, I think there's probably strong evidence that West Haven, since the mayor's tenure, has become one of the best managed financially municipalities in the state, because of a lot of the controls that have been put in place during her tenure. I think for the second item, the mitigation of control weaknesses, I think that's a reasonable thing to consider. I wouldn't say that I think going through the broad categories, I agree largely with us considering them. I think the second category here, I don't think it's unsound or meets the statutory requirement to not have those particular positions filled. I think I'm on item 3, the settlement of the litigation. I think I'm in a similar boat to Mr. Hamilton. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the costs associated with that were in the 5-year plan that we had voted to approve. So I think it would be difficult for us to make the case that it is unsound if we voted to include those costs. I don't think that the fourth category is something that's necessarily within our purview, because I think that's a much longer term sort of goal that is really in the city's sort of purview beyond ours. And then that fifth category was eliminated, but the sixth category, I think it's certainly fair to consider. I wouldn't say that the actual detail, that number 1 of establishing preventative controls, I think what the mayor demonstrated in her response about preventing fraudulent activities, I think was very well taken by me. I think it's something for us all to consider, but I wouldn't be prescriptive about it. And then the last item, I completely respect where Mr. White is coming from, and I understand that that might inform his vote. I don't think it would for me, but I respect that other folks might disagree with that. But I think we can, in this meeting, and we don't have too much time left, but I think make a recommendation to the full board that there are areas within this that are important to consider, but that the board should not be bound by a very, very narrow list of parameters or rigid list of parameters, but the board should be able to use its discretion of if we feel that the city has met unsound financial practices. For myself, I don't believe that I see that, and I think I'll be much more comfortable after we go through that audit report. But that's just my perspective in this moment. And I appreciate everybody's comments already.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other board members? Michael, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, Bob.
Oh, yeah, no, I was late to the gun. I just wanted to join Tom Hamilton on the pension. While I agree with the mayor that we've approved the 5-year plan and there does not appear to be any issue within the 5-year plan. My understanding is that in some out years, it hits 12 million. That is a big nut to swallow. So again, I would be satisfied with number one, an outcome from the mediation that moots that issue. That would be terrific. Failing that, at least a plan to meet it going forward. Again, I think these are financial controls, and I think that people will be looking at the MARB, but that's for others to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay. Susan.
I just wanted to say I appreciate the points that all my fellow members are making, and at the end of the day, I come down to about where Kevin is. And I think that this is a very helpful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Stephen, I know you're on, but I want to make sure that you're given that opportunity.
Yeah, yes. First of all, I have to say where we are right now from where we were is short of, to say it's overly impressive is really not giving it justice. My only problem with I certainly agree with Tom and I agree with Mr. White. We've had a problem with the pensions since day one. And I think that is something that I don't know how you address it, but it's got to be, I think that's something that eventually is going to find its way back into becoming a problem. And it's just something that hasn't been solved. And I think it's something that has to be dealt with. And I think that along, certainly at the fire districts, I think that's a big issue. So those are my thoughts, but I certainly agree with both Mr. Hamilton and Mr. White on some of the issues.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, over to the city.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all of your input and your comments. I just want to try to address a couple of them one by one. And first start with Mr. Hamilton's comments about tying to the statute about have we engaged in an unsound financial practice. The statute doesn't define when, right? So was that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago, 3 months ago? There is no definition. So yes, the city has engaged in unsound financial practices, but are we engaging in unsound financial practices today? I think that's what should be considered. The bank reconciliations, of course, we should be reconciling our bank statements. The audit is as of June 30th, 2024. The auditor said, and they'll confirm today, that they don't clear a comment unless it was cleared in the entire audit year, right? Because they need to cover the time period. So if we cleared it in January 2024, it's going to still remain an open item. That's why you have protivity here. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little disappointed that the MARB members do not have the protivity tracker in front of them. The state of Connecticut is paying protivity $1 million They are here every day. Their purpose is to track our progress in real time. So where the auditors left off, Protivity picks up because they have the information and they're here evaluating where we stand. So I think that should have been coupled with the audit. That's why they're here, and we're paying them a lot of money to be here. Number two, you know, the unfunded with the pension liabilities, I understand. You know, a lot of municipalities have the pension liability as an issue. Our 5-year plan shows that we're on a good course to fund them the best that we can, given our situation. And we created the OPEB trust. That was at your recommendation. That was a great recommendation. We are never going to be a perfect funded pension liability. You have cities that are in, you know, I'm not going to compare us to other cities. I'm just going to focus on West Haven, but I think it's unrealistic to expect us to fund, fully fund our pensions. Just going back, you know, to the fire departments, I understand the concern, but to ask me to come up with a plan for an issue that is not in front of me today, you know, plan for what, right? If you have concerns, but with all due respect, we've been in MARB for 7 years. You haven't presented a plan to me to help do that, right? So to ask me to stop and hold us in MARB for me to create a plan for the fire departments that are not part of the city with not a clear issue defined, I just don't think it's just not fair. And then the other thing on the police pension, which I don't know if we're going to have a separate conversation with that's in the court system. That has been in the court system for almost a year. There has been no counter to the police as of yet from the state, and it went into court. You saw my comments in my responses to our criteria that in November, I called the police union. I called the state. I said, if we could get you all back to the table in mediation, will you come back to the table? They both agreed. I think the state could have helped me take that leadership role and done that throughout the year. I did that even though we're not a party to the suit. Everybody came back to the table. There was a mediation in January 10th where there was a lot of progress that was made. There was another mediation meeting where, you know, the conversation broke down. And now there's a scheduled order. I can't control the state's actions on this court case. I am doing the best I can to bring it together. I think our police officers do deserve a response. But to keep us in, that does not tie to the state criteria. That is not something that's in my control. And if you're going to use the police pension and there's not going to be an aggressive course to resolving it, we could be in this for a couple of years. If we're going to leave this to the court system, we know how that goes. I think, again, it's my pitch again, we're focusing on this last criteria in the state statute. Let us remember all of these other criteria in the original state statute that we have met. We have upgraded our bond rating twice in 10 months. We've delivered 3 audits. We have an amazing fund balance. A lot of this is thanks to you, but you've done your job. You've done your job and you've helped bring us to this point. To have these different issues that we're hanging and holding onto, I just don't think is unrealistic.
I just want to make one comment before I give the floor to you, Kevin. And that being said, is many of the things that turned into this litigation case, as far as the pension is concerned, what follows out from right from the start when it was presented that we never were given the proper information to be able to make an informed decision. And we did provide a rejection letter that stated that, and many of we're still, all of that has not been satisfied. We have asked for evaluations of the pension. We don't have that today, and with updated figures that would align with the proposal. That's my feedback from that. So I want you to be aware, while this has been out there lingering, the state is not in the know to be able to make an informed decision. So that's my thoughts. Not not speaking for legal by any means. Kevin, over to you.
So two things. First, on the legal front, and this may have been discussed in executive session, so I'll just state it as this, which is I thought the MARB members gave a pretty clear directive to the attorneys for us that there were areas that we would be comfortable coming to an agreement on. And I think it was at least my understanding and my hope that the attorneys were going in good faith to work with the city to get to a reasonable resolution that met both the state's interest in their long-term financial stability and the city's interest in making sure that it's able to manage its police department in a responsible way. So I would be a little bit disappointed if that direction that I think the MARB clearly gave to our legal counsel was somehow not getting through or being clearly communicated to the city, because I thought we were pretty clear on our end. I think the second point that I would just make is I feel very, very strongly, at the very least, that part of our job is to make sure that this is not an adversarial relationship. The city of West Haven has, for 7 years, been under oversight. Over a large period of that time, there was an adversarial relationship, to some extent completely out of the control of the MARB because of the way that the city at times responded to many of the things that we were asking for or looking for. I think that has so dramatically changed. I don't think any of us thought that we would be at a point of discussing West Haven's exiting from MARB oversight. And I think that's a testament to simply how sound the financial and governance practices of the city have been. And if a municipality is saying that they do not want to be under this oversight, I think there is a very, very big burden upon us to make the case that they are in such an unsound financial position that they need to have this continued oversight, and that we are bringing a level of value to the municipality to justify that continued oversight. And I don't think that we meet that. I think reasonably considering a lot of these criteria and the mayor's responses to this criteria, I personally feel very satisfied by a lot of that. I completely respect that a lot of other members, and particularly to Mr. Hamilton's point, that there are reasonable things to consider that regarding significant deficiencies, regarding the sort of a number of different things that other people might have a different perspective on. I would just stress that I think there is a very, very high bar for the MARB to suggest that we believe that it is vital to the city of West Haven's finances that we personally continue to have them in an extremely high level of state oversight, which I don't think is directly translating to positive results that are that evident beyond what has been done in the past 7 years that I do think has shown a clear, successful sort of relationship between the city and the MARB.
We are at 9:51, and I want to make sure we have enough time to get to the next meeting. Bob, I will give you the floor if you're brief, please.
Always brief. Just to echo what Kevin said, I really don't think this should be adversarial. The two kind of main points that I think are out there are, number one, can you come up with a plan on the fire district's lack of service, and what will you do if the pension spikes? And those are just, and as I said, I think there is a plan out there. Be happy to talk to folks, but it just seems I don't think there's a need for that kind of pushback, given the level. These kind of things are not going to take a long time. And I'd like to see you guys out, and to some extent pushing back may slow that up. I just want to leave that. Bye.
Okay. I think that I want to make sure we have enough time, and now we don't have 10 minutes. We're down to 8. So with that, could I please get a motion to adjourn so that we can attend the full MARB?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Kevin. And could I get a second?
Oh, I didn't second. I was actually going to say, before we do that, does Mr. Hamilton feel comfortable with where this discussion has been? Because I could imagine articulating all of this might be challenging.
Yeah, I've got a page of notes, but we obviously haven't come to any, unanimous sort of conclusion as to what the criteria ought to be. So I think that's really my primary, you know, discussion is going to be. We had a robust discussion. Here's the items we discussed, but there wasn't, you know, any votes taken to, you know, establish criteria. And just kind of give a little bit of flavor of the discussion. But I think individual members ought to be given certainly the opportunity to weigh in and in the discussion we have in the full board. I think because of the fact that we're not coming out saying, okay, we've discussed it, we've all agreed on it. Here are the list of the 3 items we want to see to release West Haven. So. I'll just kind of do my best, but if anyone wants to chime in, I'm fine with that. So
That's sufficient. Thank you, Tom.
okay.
Kevin, you did give me the motion for adjourn?
That was Mr. Felsigno, but I'll second the
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Kevin. And all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you, everybody, for all of your feedback.
Thank you.